Hi, this is Jim Johnson. This is another episode of Fishnet Straight Talk, and we're here by a campfire in a beautiful lake. And today my guest is Jill Robson, and she has an interesting story, and she has an accent because she's from Britain, England.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Indeed.
Jill, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing.
Well, you're right. My accent is from the United Kingdom. So I was born in America, actually, in Florida, when my father was working over here. And then I grew up in England. I spent a year out in Africa, Kenya.
Oh, wow.
14 years in Thailand. And now I'm here.
You've been around.
In San Jose.
Wow.
Yes. So very global.
Wow. How long you been here?
I've been here for 10 years.
10 years. Oh, that's not real long. You've written a book recently that I've heard about, and I wanted to talk about that.
Yes.
So tell us about your book.
So this is The Fire of Delay. Last November, I published this book with Trilogy Publishing, and I've been navigating a season of very extended waiting regarding a promise that the Lord gave me over 23 years ago regarding a husband. And he confirmed it with a number of signs and wonders over a period of 3 weeks after I asked him to matchmake me.
Oh.
And it was at a really precious time with the Lord, and it got rooted really deep down inside of me. And so my book is this journey of the extended waiting period. And I have recently met my husband. A month after I published the book, I met Mr. James Allen on Christmas Eve at a candlelight service, and he is a true man of God, and everything that my heart had desired, that the Lord had already placed in my heart, I would meet. And so we are getting married this year. So
I noticed a ring on your finger. You just got engaged, I think.
I have. And so I have come through the other side of the journey, but we're really talking about a 23-year journey. And during this period of navigating the issues of the pain, the shame, the questions, I noticed that I'm not alone in that area. And although for me, this fire, this purifying fire, was in the area of singleness, for others, I noticed it could be in other areas: finances, ministry, relationships, marriage issues, health issues. We all experience delay in some form or another.
Do you think there's a reason for delay?
There's always good reason for delay in different areas. You know, the Bible talks a lot about perseverance doing its good work so that we may mature and lack nothing. And there's also the preparation for the promise that each one of us gets. And though sometimes the answers to prayer come very quickly in certain areas, we all tend to go through things where there's a particular area that God has used to refine us and train us in every area of life. So for me, although I've been single for the last 25 years, and it really is a very, very extended period of time, because for many people, they'd go, I've either been too fussy, I've turned down other choices for men who weren't, I didn't sense were from the Lord. And I've always had great people around me to help me navigate it. But also you then start to make kind of more carnal decisions based on circumstance rather than by the leading of the Spirit. And my book is really about navigating it and really allowing the Spirit to lead our lives where we thrive in every season, and not just when we have the promise. Because a bit like Joseph in the Old Testament, he was a real key figure for me, because God has used this journey as a single woman to kind of train me to learn how to govern not just my own soul. The Proverb 16 that we were talking about earlier, Proverbs 16 verse 32 says, greater is he who can govern his own soul or his own spirit than he who can take a city.
Yeah. You mentioned about some signs and wonders about the plans that God had for you and your marriage and finding a partner. So can you expound on that or tell us stories about that?
Yes, I'd love to. So really about 23 years ago, I was committing everything to God at the time, and I was going through a lot of inner healing on different areas. And one of the areas was regarding marriage. And I had committed it. It took a while, but I'd really committed it over to the Lord and gave my desire for marriage to him, and actually said, would you matchmake me? If I'm going to marry, you confirm it, but you matchmake me. And it took me a while, but I committed it. I was on the floor in my bed, in my beautiful little place that I was living in at the time, and I gave it over to him. And after that, about quite a few days, even a couple of weeks went by where nothing necessarily happened straight away. But during this period, I was helping to organize a wedding for a friend whose fiance had come over and said, let's get married now. And literally within a week and a half, he wanted to marry her and bring her back to America. Now it was Chinese New Year and everything shuts down. So I ended up being one of the key people who actually ended up organizing this wedding for her, finding all the flowers and the outfits and where they were going to get married, where they were going to have the reception. And so they got married in the church, and this gentleman flew in. So he didn't know me, but she did. And the gentleman flew in, and he was obviously blown away that I had come alongside and helped organize the wedding at such short notice. And on their wedding day, at the very end of the reception, they go off in this beautiful, beautiful little hotel to the honeymoon suite. And we all say goodbye and we all say our blessings and they leave. Well, we're starting to pack up and he comes back up again. And we're like, what is he doing coming back up? They've literally like 15, 20 minutes later. Why would he come back up? And he was clearly just kind of disturbed. And he said, look, Jill, I have to speak to you. And I went, sorry, he pulled me aside and he said, Jill, the Lord would not let me embark on my married life until I spoke to you, because I knew I probably would never see you again. And he proceeded to tell me something that the Lord had really impressed upon his heart, and he had spoken to him in the morning, that God was wanting me to know, as Jill, that I was set apart, that I was holy, and he had someone for me specifically. But the thing that God had really given this man a kind of a vision of was him holding my hands, looking me in the eye, and me promising that I would wait for God's choice for me. But
this is like almost total stranger.
An almost total stranger. And he did not know what had been happening a week and a half, 2 weeks prior in my bedroom before the Lord. And I knew this was God. And I took his hands. He said, Joe, will you promise me, whether you wait 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 years or more, will you wait? And I knew that it was important, and I could feel the conviction in my heart, and I said yes. And that rooted the promise down really deeply, and I never saw that man again.
Wow.
So he was obviously so disturbed about not sharing the word with me that he could not embark on his married life without coming up. So it was a real blessing and a real confirmation to me that God was affirming, one, that he had marriage for me, but two, that there was someone that God had in mind. And that caused me to not move into the dating game and just trying anything out, and trusting in God in that way. And it was been really special because of it.
It's an amazing story. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
And I do work with Ed and Ruth Silvoso. I have the blessing of working with Transform Our World, and we're all about city and nation transformation. But it is harder to govern their own soul, and I do believe that what I've written has meaning for anyone who is really wanting to navigate seasons of extended delay and learn how to govern their own soul.
How can people get your book?
They can get my book on Amazon. It's called The Fire of Delay, Navigating Seasons of Extended Waiting by Jill Robson. And you can get it on Amazon and find it there. In Trilogy Publishing.
Oh, nice. What are your future plans?
Well, I am now engaged to be married, and I am about to move down to Santa Barbara. I work with Ed and Ruth Silvoso, as I told you, from Transform Our World, so I will be working with them still when I go down there. And I will be starting and living now the family of two rather than the family of one, where I've learned to thrive in every area of life as a single. I will now be doing that in marriage, and even that will come with its own different things with that. But I am so excited to start.
And you're working on the global conference.
I'm working on the global conference for Transform Our World, which is going to take place in the Bay Area this year, which is going to be amazing.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say or about yourself or your book, or tell us how you came to faith?
Oh yeah, that's a great question, Jim. Actually, that's a really good question. I grew up in a very Anglo-Catholic family, a very idyllic family. Actually, had a wonderful childhood, And at the age of 12...
In Florida. This is when you were in...
No,
grew
I
up
was
in Florida?
born in Florida.
Born in Florida.
Grew up in England.
Grew up in England. That's right. Okay.
And so at the age of 12, I mean, and I noticed that they have these kind of camps here in America, like Hume Lake and things like that. In England, my twin and I used to go to these sports camps because we were very athletic. And at the age of 12, we were at one of these sports camps, and I had obviously heard the gospel in one of the evening meetings, and I had a really strong desire to get alone, which is kind of unusual because as an identical twin, I spent all my time with my twin and with my friends and my siblings, and I needed to get alone. And I don't remember who preached, but I know something had hit me, and I went outside, found a tree in this evening, lovely evening in England, and as I was sitting under the tree, I experienced this sense of being washed from the tip of my head to the bottom of my toes, and I wept as a 12-year-old with the awareness that I was being cleansed from everything. And you don't necessarily think, oh, I'm a sinner at the age of 12, but the experience and the presence of God was so strong, I knew that I was releasing my life to him, even at 12 years old. And it was an amazing encounter. And after then, it was almost as if there was an awakening in me to new things about myself and about God, and just did really well at school. And it was a fascinating time. It was a really fascinating time to be awakened to the gospel like that.
So if you want to briefly tell us about, you lived in Africa and Thailand and...
Yes, I took a year out and went to Kenya.
What'd you do there?
I actually went out with an organization from where I lived, where there was a unity of churches, and they were working on educating and building care centers for the disabled. Oh. And I went out as the youngest member that's ever been there, right into a place called Bungoma, where there was no Westerners. And they had a unity of churches in that area. And I took out all these typewriters and taught them how to type.
Oh, wow.
And had an experience of actually being there in the culture for a period of 6 to 8 months, and really, really enjoyed it. And their faith and the aliveness to God and hunger for the truth. And it was an amazing experience.
Wow. And then you spent some time in Thailand too.
14 years.
Oh, wow.
So 14 years. The reason I stayed there for so long was because of this little church called Phuket Christian Center. And I had gone out to Thailand with as a spa consultant for a 5-star hotel group. And so that was what brought me there. And whilst I was there in this island called Phuket, I was really hungry for God, because although I'd been saved at the age of 12, I never really got discipled.
Yeah.
So by the time I got there,
was this the place where the big wave came? The tidal?
This is where the tsunami hit.
Were you there before or after?
I was there before.
Before, okay.
Yes. So I had arrived and I was hungry for God, and I saw this advert for an international church. But when I went, it was all Thais with English pastors. But I walked in and I just knew that what they had, I had to have it. Now at the time I didn't realize, it's the Holy Spirit, because I grew up under the teachings that the Holy Spirit wasn't necessary for today, that the gifts of the Spirit ended with the apostles. And so when I walked in and I could feel the presence of God, and if I'm not wrong, I think even that day somebody got physically healed, and that was very normal for the Thai church.
And it was a small church then.
It was a tiny church,
but it's not small anymore.
Now the church is discipling the entire region, so they have, but it's all over the place. Ecclesia, it's amazing. And my life just took a completely different trajectory from then on. And so when I was offered opportunities to leave, God just started to give me opportunities to stay. And I stayed in the spa industry for a long time, and then the last 4 years I started a Pilates company, where I worked with spinal injuries with my client and group classes, and a lot of supernatural miracles and things came forth from that.
Wow.
So
people got healed? Some?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Love healing. Healing is a passion of mine. Mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all forms of healing are probably one of my greatest passions.
Well, I think that healing isn't so much just about our comfort or benefit. It's uplift and glorify God and give honor to God. And He heals, and then it's a lot about showing the signs of wonder in His love and power,
Yeah.
and not only about our benefit.
Yeah.
And so,
Exactly. Like it's one of the signs that follow those who believe.
yeah,
And so that's where the boldness can come in to lay hands on the sick and pray for people who are hurting. And so it's always been there within my heart. And although I'm a sports therapist by training and a Pilates instructor, I've always had a passion for health, but even more so for physical healing and seeing the hand of God. Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing with us today. Appreciate it. And
thank you, Jim. I appreciate you having me.
Buy Jill's book, The Fire of Delay. So, yeah, check it out on Amazon. And all right.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks for being with us.